Finding your first job in dentisting is not easy. Hiring your first associate, also difficult. I have created Dentist Job Connect to solve this problem. My name is Paul Dr. Nacho Goodman, founder of Dental Nachos, and connecting dentists for jobs is one of my favorite things to do. It embraces our amazing Nacho spirit of collaboration, community, and helping each other. To learn more how we can help you, text JOB to 215-543-6454. All right, great. So welcome to Dental Nachos TV. We have people filtering in. I am Paul Dr. Nacho Goodman here with my awesome friend, Dr. D'Angelo Webster. I'm going to introduce in a minute, but I have some announcements made on my super fancy signs. I love paper. So first sign, welcome to Dental Nachos TV. You might be watching this live or in the future, and you might want to reach out to us again. So we have a whole website where we have all kinds of things like CE and courses and blogs. So you can go to dentalnachos.com or email us at salsa@dentalnachos.com. Now, if you're watching this webinar live or you are watching it on demand years later, take a photo or screenshot of this. So take out your phone or get your Control-Alt-4 thing on your Apple ready and take a screenshot of this number. So this is my community text hotline. It is attached to my phone. My team can use it too. I found here in 2021, people open text more than email. So there's going to be prizes throughout this show. There's going to be ways to connect with us throughout this show that you're going to need this number for. And the first one I want to say is we have a lot of awesome sponsors at Dental Nachos. Why do we have sponsors? So they make the group run so that they add value to the group. And so they make my wife think I'm not nuts for me just be doing Dental Nachos all day long without anyone helping us make this group go. Sponsors are here as key resources to improve your lives, increase success, decrease stress. So if you're watching this and you have dental school loans, you're in dental school, you're out of dental school for 10 years. No one really told you how to pay off your loans. One of our key resource and sponsor, student loan planner, Travis Hornsby, I think is like a Batman of loans. He will give you a treatment plan for how to best pay off your loans. One of our recent Dental Nachos said he's one of our best sponsors. So he's going to tell you that you're doing great, keep going, or you can pay off your loans in a different way. So if you'd like to connect with him, you can text us here. We're going to start our show in just a minute. One thing I've learned, D'Angelo, and doing this for 15 years, people don't show up for a Zoom webinar on time or in-person CE on time. Dentists just think it's a friendly suggestion, right?
And the world keeps going around.
Yeah, so I know people are filtering in. We got more people here in the chat. So my next question for you is, do you like free stuff? Rhetorical question. You're a dentist. You love free stuff. People are cheap, but dentists, you are a special level of cheap. So if you would like some free CE, just text gift to this number and you will get a $143 Nacho CE gift code. We have courses on clinical dentistry, practice management, stress management, sleep apnea, and more. It's a $143 code because it is in honor of my hero, Mr. Rogers. 143 was his favorite number for I Love You. A couple more things before we start with D'Angelo. Next question, do you like sharing and swag? So do you like sharing things and Nacho swag? We are developing our Nacho Ambassador program named after one of my most favorite things, which I cannot do as a dad, most likely as a dental school student, Nat. Our Nacho Ambassador program, we're looking for 50 dental students, residents, and dentists up to 10 years in practice to share what we do. You're going to get free swag, free CE, and get to be on special Zoom webinars with me to help you learn how to reduce your crying inside. So I'm going to set up this awesome interview with D'Angelo with this. There are 4 big decisions you make in your dental life: finding a job, buying a practice, hiring an associate, and selling your practice. Find job, buy practice, hire associate, sell practice. I would love if you put in the chat, which one are you closest to doing next in your dental career? Are you closest to finding your first job, buying your first practice, hiring your first associate, or selling your practice? So I have found my first job. I have bought my first practice and multiple practices. I've hired multiple associates. So I guess I'm closest, D'Angelo, to selling my practice, but that's probably not a long time away. Sometimes, D'Angelo, DSOs like just cold call the office and they're like, hey, do you want to sell your practice? I'm like, how is it behaving today? Maybe I do want to sell it, but I'm just joking. My brother and I run our practices right now together. Doesn't mean working with a DSO is a bad thing. There's all different types of DSOs out there. I work with them all the time, but these are the 4 major decisions. So if you need help in any of these decisions, I don't know if you remember a few signs ago, I put up 215-543-6454. So you just text this word one at a time. Don't text them all. So if you're looking for a job and you'd like to see 100 open jobs right now on Dentist Job Connect, text job to 215-543-6454. You want help buying a practice, my Nacho team will do a free interview with you, tell you how to get started. Same thing with hiring an associate and selling your practice. So just text one or all of these words one at a time. You may get an automatic response. The team may get back to you tomorrow. So with that, our announcements and sponsors out of the way, I want to introduce you to the awesome show with Dr. D'Angelo Webster. D'Angelo is the founder of the Practice Biopsy and Betterment Group. He's going to tell us the full name here in a minute. And I have a whole checklist for our show here. Sunday,
Awesome.
Reduce Dentistry Stress, D'Angelo. So thanks for being here. Tell us first about your Facebook group, how someone finds it, what's the name. I love your Facebook group. You've changed it a little recently to let some people post. So tell us about that.
Yeah. So first of all, I'm a practice owning dentist. The name of the social media group I run is called Practice Biopsy. And it's all about business and betterment for dentists. The way that the group kind of got started was my journey to practice ownership was a little unique. So I actually applied for the startup loan for my dental practice when I was a fourth year student. So I didn't buy a practice. I started one from scratch, and I'd already applied for the loan and everything while I was still in school. I had my business plan, my marketing plan, my website taken care of. I had all that stuff done when I was still a dental student. And kind of how Paul, you and I are kind of Gary Vee fans. He talks about document the process. Yeah. So that's what it was all about for me. I was like, one day, wouldn't it be cool to be able to look back and see what was I feeling the very first day when I'm a brand new dentist, I've never owned a business before, and it's the first day of work. What would it be like looking back and seeing what I was doing the second day? And I can actually look back and see that. So the group overall was me documenting that process. And like you said, I've made some changes recently. So I've kind of opened it up more for other people to kind of share their journeys as well in the group and share lessons that they've learned along the way as well. So that's the main concept of it. I mean, I'm really open and transparent about everything. I've posted like my finances. I post like screenshots of my profit and loss statements. I talk about my good days, my bad days, pretty much everything.
I have a good phrase that I use a lot. I'm not interrupting you, I'm interjecting. I use it with my wife. I'm not interrupting, I just want to interject. So I really compliment you on being authentic like Gary Vee and sharing these numbers and process so everyone can learn. And it's very normal for all of us. Let's say you see on social media, someone has a family and it looks like they never get in an argument, but behind the scenes, they'll get in arguments. It would be great for people to post their authentic selves. Reading a P&L alone, D'Angelo, we're going to talk about so many things today, but I like to respond to the things brought up. Why should dental students and every dentist know how to look at a P&L, read a P&L? What's the value of just that exercise?
So if you're going to be a practice owner, it's more relevant, but even as an associate, it can matter too, because the P&L is it's like a health checkup for your practice, how you're doing financially. And, I have this blog post I wrote called The Myth of the $1 Million Practice, because people, for a long time, there was this, kind of almost like a borderline slogan, like $1 million office. Well, what does that really mean? That just means the top number, how much revenue the practice is bringing in. But in terms of what most dentists are concerned about, it's going to be the bottom number. Right. What is the profit left over? How much are you actually making from this business that you're putting your whole life into? And the profit and loss statement is going to show the top number, the bottom number, and everything in between that makes up that difference. And the better you understand the different control variables that are in between, the better that you'll be able to kind of calibrate the difference between that top and bottom number and achieve the different goals that you set for yourself and for your practice. And the better that your practice does, the better that you do and your family does, and the families of your staff as well.
So just already, one of the reasons I love to document this is because maybe people be watching this 10 years from now, D'Angelo. I love that you're documenting the process, but I want to share. So you did this about the $1 million practice 3 years ago. Bob Septak is the founder of United Dental Brokers of America. He's who I work with to sell practices. Mm-hmm. He and I did a show called The $1 Million Practice That Made No Profit, because it was based on a real client that called him up. He's an accountant and said, Bob, I do $1 million a year. I want to sell my practice. And he went through the entire thing. And this was not a terrible dentist. Obviously, he's producing this, but because he was paying consultants and doing this, it made zero profit. And Bob, like that personal trainer who has to tell you what your body fat percentage is, like the person who says, like your financial planner who has to show you what you've saved to retirement. He said, this practice is not worth anything. If anybody would like that show, it's one of our most popular shows. Just text million to 215-543-6454. I know we picked a good time for this, D'Angelo, because I see one of my favorite dads and basketball fan, Brandon Hill, joining us. He is our Nacho strategic growth director. He helps people sell practices. So he's here watching in with us. He's probably got some dad downtime. He's actually in a good mood, D'Angelo. Do you want to know why? Because in a few Sundays, he's going to watch the Eagles and he's going to be in not a good mood on Sundays. So this is his preseason. Get ready for this. So just right off the bat, why read a P&L is so important. I love that you put this out there. Before we get to your super teeny tiny overhead, I want to talk about this as just an evergreen topic. We've all been high school, college dentists, and we get this Sunday dread. I think a lot of it was because we took a lot of tests on Monday. All of our instructors just didn't test on Friday, but I still feel, even though I'm a positive person, this Sunday dread, like I got my office tomorrow, I go talk to my brother next. What do you do to help combat Sunday dread? Even if you have it in the smallest bit, do you do it with exercise, reading, family, eating nachos? What are some things you do?
I think the best way to help with that is like to do some, almost premeditative work to help make sure that the week goes well. So I'm big on like writing out my goals for the week, writing out a map for the week, writing out maybe some challenges for the week. Writing out challenges is a big thing. Like a lot of people maybe will write out their goals, but if you write out maybe the things that have been on your mind, you're a little anxious about, you're a little worried about, just having them down on paper can kind of get them out of you and make them something that you can, externalize and say, okay, this week we're going to handle these things. Also, just creating a work environment that you feel happy about showing up to is really important. And then with the weekend, your downtime, everyone needs downtime to kind of, recover and be at full energy to go into the week. I'm more and more into the idea of having intentional downtime versus, you're just kind of a wasted downtime. So intentional downtime, we only get so many hours for ourselves. So you have to see, okay, what do I, Paul Goodman, really like to do to relax that really recharges me? Because you could sit around on the couch all day without a plan and scroll on your phone and, oh my gosh, the weekend's over and I'm still kind of tired. But if you really say, okay, I really love movies, I really love golf, and you just sit down, if you really love movies, you sit down, you say, I'm going to watch a movie, I'm going to recharge myself, I'm going to get some of my favorite snacks, and you do that and you're ready to go. Or, if you really love golf, that on Sunday you're going to go out and golf and you're going to clear your mind and you're going to come back ready for the week.
I want to, so that is such
intention with your downtime.
And, I've been a dentist for 19 years. We have the practice management software Dentistry. What do you have in your practice?
Open Dental.
So what's Nacho nuts is I will go into my office tomorrow with so many different pieces of energy, a little anxiety, a little awesomeness. But as soon as I see that dentistry schedule, it calms me down. We have our surgical prosthodontists, placing implants, periodontists. I got to talk this. We should actually have that for our personal lives, right? And I think you should say 2 hours, do nothing, watch reality TV if that relaxes you. 2 hours, this and that. I mean, to me, fitness doesn't mean I have to look like a model or I have to be able to do 1,000 push-ups. I just always like to put activity into my Sunday day because I think a lot of times I've had sleeping issues on Sunday. I think we all have.
It's really common.
You're just playing this over your head. So I think if I actually, maybe I treat myself like a 3-year-old, D'Angelo. I'm like, if I tire myself out early in the morning, and I actually always drink less coffee on Sunday. So those are two of the things I did. So I appreciate it.
Also, and just like we all look for ways to optimize our dental practice and dental career. I think it's really important to try and optimize your life too, like your out of dentistry life. Because kind of like, like business gurus in dentistry always say everything needs a system. Well, why do things in your practice need a system, but maybe things in your real life don't? If you had a system for your health, if you had a system for being calm, if you had a system for being energized, maybe things would go a lot better.
I love that.
Things that I've actually been working on.
Treatment plan your own happiness. I mean, make a treatment plan I love that, a system for your own happiness. I just did Super Dentist Boost, which was amazing. One of my slides was, it would be great if dentists admired the happiness level of dentists, other dentists, as much as their perfect crown preps or their perfect production, because that's all part of it. And you made me think of this book I have all the time, the Checklist Manifesto. I don't know if you've read this one, but just a really classic fundamental book on how organizations use checklists. The story in here, D'Angelo, was, do you remember that pilot Sully Sullenberger who landed the plane in the Hudson River and saved
Tom
everybody?
Hanks.
Yeah, Tom Hanks. So everyone just thought, oh man, this guy's 60, he's a video game pilot. He just must be so good, like LeBron taking the shot at the end of the game. And he said, no, none of that. We had a series of checklists from the flight attendants down to everybody to get everyone to safety. And that's just one of the stories in this book. So it's one of my favorite books. So Sunday Dread, if you guys have a Sunday Dread idea, pop it in the chat. If you guys have questions for me or D'Angelo, please pop it in the chat too. So my next topic on my checklist, D'Angelo, is your super teeny tiny overhead. So I have really admired your posting about how to manage overhead. And what I want to share is, and we just did a podcast with Cliff Moore, D'Angelo, about his crazy fitness routine and how he runs 50 miles and does this. This doesn't mean, when I was a kid, D'Angelo said this, don't try this at home. So it doesn't mean you have to go to your office tomorrow and tell your team there's no more free coffee, right? It just means learn from D'Angelo, but break this down for us. Tell us what whatever you're comfortable with. You can go with monthly numbers. Tell us the numbers and the overhead and how you are some of the fundamental ways you make this happen.
Yeah. So when I was earlier in my practice, my overhead was routinely in the 30%. And that's not like a month here or there. I'm talking about like a 12-month span. Was typically in the 30%. As my practice grew a bit more, it kind of settled in around 40%. Okay. And then I always like to give like a little story example about the $1 million practice. I'll do that just for the people who are listening and maybe haven't thought about this too much before. But let's say that you've got two practices and they both have a revenue of $1 million. Great. Okay. Well, the average overhead of a dental office in the United States is around 65%, I believe. Okay. So you've got, Dr. A and Dr. B. We've got let's see, we've got Lean Larry and we've got Overhead Andrew. Okay. So Overhead Andrew, he's right around the average overhead, 65%, but he's got a couple little dental toys too. And he pays his staff really well. And, he's not afraid to spend. So his overhead's going to be 70%. Okay. His overhead's going to be 70% on his $1 million. So he's going to make a net income of 300,000. That's pretty good. He's producing $1 million. Okay. Well, if you've got a Lean Larry, his practice is only $500,000. He only does 500K. Okay. So he's, half of our other dentists. Well, his overhead is only 40%. So he's going to keep $300,000, which is the same amount that our high overhead dentist is, but he's doing half the amount of work.
Right.
Okay. So in my office, overhead's around 40%. And with kind of like, you and I were talking about earlier, I'm a relatively new dentist. By the time I was in my first full year, full time at my startup, my income was what I estimated to be in the top 5% of dentists.
Appreciate this. This is great. I love overhead, Andrew. I mean, like a couple things just to orient our viewers here.
Yeah.
When did you graduate from dental school? What year?
I graduated in 2016. I opened Michigan. My practice in 2017.
Michigan, you graduated from, right?
Was that University of Michigan.
2017. Yep. Now, I've been a dentist for 19 years. We have more than one practice. I help sell practices. So I look at this with people. Let's go over this. Like, let's say it's my Fitness Pal and people are trying to reduce the calories they take in, right?
Yeah.
So let's go staff percentage. What's your staff percentage, team percentage pay roughly in your practice? And we won't hold you to exact.
That's about 20%.
20. So now let's talk about supply cost, right? So 20 to 25% is normal for staff wages. You're lowered. Let's talk about supply costs.
So I'm gonna kind of turn the ship a little bit. So supply costs, staff costs, a lot of these things, they're going to change your overhead, but they're not going to bring you from 70% down to 30%.
Gotcha.
The biggest things that are going to affect overhead, and this is why it's the most important that young dentists listen to this, because the earlier you know this, the better. The biggest variables that are going to affect this overhead are going to take place before you ever see your first patient.
Awesome.
Okay. So these biggest variables are going to be your fixed costs, your rent, your mortgage. You cannot easily change these things later. The size of the practice loan that you're taking out. If you're paying a $10,000 a month rent, you're probably going to have high overhead, and it's very hard to change that later. So you need to figure this out before you even see that first patient. Before you start working in this practice, you need to account for these things, because these are going to be the bulk. When we talk about supplies, you know, a good target for supply cost overhead is going to be 4%.
Gotcha.
If you're way out of control, maybe you're at 7 or 8%, but that's still only 3 or 4% difference.
So tell us, this is great as we dive deeper into this. Anybody has questions? You are some of the leanest overhead around. You work, how many days a week do you work usually? How many days a week do you
I work 32 clinical hours a week.
32. So you're in the 4-day-a-week category.
Yeah.
You're making in the top percentage of practice owners right now. Monthly, what's your practice on pace to collect this year, roughly? Would you say, if you stay
for collections, around $1 million.
So you're at $1 million, and you're going to have only 40% overhead. So you're going to be making over, let's just say there's over $500,000 a year as a solo GP. I sell practices. I am a part of a group practice, so not exactly in the same category, but I deal with solo GPs all the time who are awesome. But that is an incredibly high income for, especially for someone just 4 years out of school. So take us a little deeper in here. I know you do very special things with marketing. Give us a few more of these deeper D'Angelo details on this low overhead. So
to go back to fixed overhead, you want to minimize your startup loan. So I did a lot of research on this, and at the time I did my startup, the average, according to Bank of America, the average amount taken out for a startup loan was about $400,000. Now it's closer to $500,000. I did mine for less than $100,000. So right off the bat, my monthly payment on my practice loan is very, 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 very small. Okay. Other things that matter in terms of low overhead is collecting for the work that you produce. Okay, this is a really big thing. Your accounts receivable can't get out of control. You have to collect for the work that you do. Okay, because you might produce, you know, X amount, but only collect 80% of it, and every month you're sending out sending out statements in the mail. Please pay me. My practice, since the time we've been open, Paul, I've never sent out a single statement or bill to a patient ever. Not one.
Now, you just for context, do you have the insurance pay you, or does the patient pay you first and the insurance pays the patient?
So I'm a PPO office. So basically the process is the patient will come in. We have already estimated what their copay would be. Patient pays me copay. I do dental work. Then we bill out to insurance, wait for insurance to pay me. That's the process.
I want to interject with two things here, because I saw you to one spicy topping alert is, let's talk about in a minute where D'Angelo chose to practice. I was just on Dental Nachos being kindly disruptive, as I like to be. And I said, telling young dentists to move away from their friends and family to get a stressful job so they can make a lot of money, maybe solving one problem, but be creating a bigger problem. What we really need to do is encourage dentists to increase their geographic flexibility in a way that supports them as a total person. So I want to do spicy topping alert for you, D'Angelo. How did you pick where you were going to open up this startup practice?
Sure. So, and I've actually made a post about this before. So I actually live when you look at cost per living, I live in the most expensive city to live in the state of Michigan when you look at cost per living. Gotcha. But I don't practice there. Yeah. If I practiced here, I probably would not be doing very well, or quite as well at all. But I knew I wanted to live here. I knew this is a city that I like. I live in Ann Arbor. That's a city that I like. They have great school districts. It's where I wanted to be. So when I was deciding, I was like, well, all right, how far am I willing to drive? So I looked at different cities and towns within 45 minutes driving of where I wanted to live. And I kind of narrowed it down from there. And just within 45 minutes, I mean, you can be surprised how different the demographics are, how different the patient populations are, if you're willing to go 45 minutes.
And
now, I didn't end up having to drive that far. I only drive 20 minutes to work each day.
You were very strategic about this. And this is why with so many great people in here. It's like my reading, I see Nick, I see Ryan, I see all these great people. I'm assuming they'll let me like violate their Zoom HIPAA and say their name out there. But this is so important, because I think sometimes you see on social media, just start up a practice. I practice in a town where my dad had the practice. my brother and I took over. We purchased another practice nearby in one of the most densely populated areas of New Jersey, where the dentists are 1 to 1,000. And what happens in our area, if someone just sauntered by and tried to open up a practice, I would support them and be nice to them, but and be their colleague, but they would have a more challenging time than if they went to a different place. So one of your take-home tips is the spot where you do your startup is incredibly important.
It's extraordinarily important. And a takeaway is you don't have to live in the city. I don't live in the city that I practice.
Yeah.
If I practiced in the city that I live in, like, it sounds like your area is really saturated. I think in Ann Arbor, I mean, you said your dentist population is 1 to 1,000. I think ours might be like 1 to 700, if I remember. Wow. So, and we have a dental school. Right. So no way.
That's tough to overcome, because there's just not enough room for everyone to have a dental practice in an area where there's a bunch of dentists. Because what I think is unique, and this is like a really good point that I haven't brought up enough. Patients don't want to drive far for the dentist, right? D'Angelo, you don't have anyone coming from an hour to see you?
I mean, I got a couple, but the typical patient, no.
That's not your most, same with us.
Typical patient is going to be 10-minute drive tops.
And I just want to share with you, when you have a patient travels far to see you, they may love you. There's also a lot of frustration with that, because someone goes, I'm coming to see you from 4 hours away, Paul. I say, I think you should find a dentist that's really good near you, because dentistry is full contact arts and crafts, the temporary breaks, this happens. So I think that's a really good point, that patients aren't going to travel that far. So you have this spot here. You start with this $100,000 startup loan. Which bank did you use, if you don't mind saying, or how did you deal with the banks for the financing portion?
That's a tough one. So, as you can imagine, Paul, I applied for my startup loan when I was a dental student. So the first question is, are you a dentist? I'm like, not yet. Yeah. Have you ever run a business? Any business experience? No. So pretty much everywhere I applied to was a no. But I had time. I was still in school. Everyone said no, 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 no. And then eventually one place said yes. And that was actually Wells Fargo. Wells Fargo said, sure, we'll take a chance. But I didn't get a great deal because I was a student and I had no money and no experience. I didn't get a great deal. But having that yes kind of opened doors for me. So I went back to some other banks and said, hey, can you reconsider? I have a proposal from another bank. Can you reconsider financing my startup? And that eventually turned in some yeses. And I ended up going with Bank of America. And Bank of America, I get like hit and miss stories about experiences with them, but mine has been really strong.
Yeah, and I think that's really good point to say, especially as we have sponsors. I'll share one of our sponsors again on loans, text loans to 215-543-6454. Help you that is that just find out for yourself, and not everyone's experience is the same. Yeah. There's people that love the Dental Nachos Facebook group. There's people that like it, and there's some people who say things about it that my grandmother would be very upset with, but it's still the same Dental Nachos Facebook group. So find out what fits for you in this process. I want to pause for this for a second, D'Angelo, because I want you to tell us, as we move, about your first job. And as you do that, I see someone in the chat, the awesome Heather Bialy. She has a listing on our Job Connect platform. So if you text job to 215-543-6454, you'll immediately see over 100 jobs. And Heather, feel free to drop your job in the chat. It's in New Jersey, not too far from me. They're a great dental office. Thanks for being here, Heather. That's a special treatment you get if you show up to some Zooms. So Heather, if you have your job, you can share it in the chat. But D'Angelo, tell us about your first job, because I know you didn't stay there very long, but tell us a little bit about this dental school to my first job thing.
My second job was amazing. My second job was amazing, and it was an excellent opportunity, and I loved everyone that worked there, and the owner was great, and it was a wonderful opportunity. That was my second job. Yeah. The first job was terrible. My first job, it felt like I worked there for a year.
Gotcha.
I worked.
I want to break this down like a basketball play, because you're Dr. D'Angelo, you're strategic. Yeah. And we can't judge ourselves too harshly. How did you
felt horrible.
Accept the job, though? Tell us a little bit about how you accepted a job that turned out so bad. I mean, you're very strategic.
Yeah. So
what happened?
I did a lot of. So I took a job at a corporate place. It wasn't like a big corporate place. I'm not going to say the name of it. It had like maybe 15 offices. And my perspective was, I'm really passionate about the business side of dentistry. So what is a better place to learn about the business side of dentistry than like one of these corporate offices, especially one that's a little smaller. I could get to know the owner of it, and this could be a really good learning experience. So I spent some time shadowing in an office that was in this group. And, it was pretty cool. It was nice. And of the different locations, there was one that was about 15, 20 minutes from my house. I thought, great, this could be a great place to start. And I accepted the job, and with the understanding that I really just wanted the opportunity to learn, how business like this works, and you have the support team behind you of a corporate office. A lot of positives go with that. So, I agreed. And then within the first day, they said, hey, that office you've been shadowing at that you thought you were going to work at that's like 15, 20 minutes away? You're actually not going to work there.
Jeez.
There's this office that's an hour and a half away. And you're going to work there. And during rush hour, it's like 2.5 hours commute.
So they really switched up
that's where we need you.
They switched up your treatment plan.
Yeah. So they switched up the treatment plan, and that was how we started off. Okay. So it's like, all right, I'm gonna give it a try. I can do this. So I show up, and it's like a dental office, 8 to 5 hours. Work through lunch. I'm like, okay, yeah, I can do this. My pay, Paul, was a flat rate of $500 a day. Okay. So just 500, that's what you get. And it's like, all right, it's getting near 5 o'clock. And they're like, oh, no, we're not going home yet. My first day, I was there until 11:30 p.m. And I think the owner dentist was working until 1 a.m.
That's crazy. I want to jump in and say something because I really appreciate you sharing. Listen, everyone goes on dates that don't work out well. You do things that work out. Don't overjudge yourself. But sometimes, and they really switched up your treatment plan here, but we have an associate in our practice who switched from her job to work with us full time. And one of the things is we finish on time every day for everyone's sanity. It doesn't mean it doesn't go a minute later, but she was working for a corporate style place that sometimes at 5:50, they put a whole new patient in her schedule, and it was done at 6 p.m. So while you think that might be some good experience, why did that drive you nacho nuts, D'Angelo? Why didn't you want to just get more experience? Isn't it just good to get more experience? How did that affect your sanity?
It wasn't transparent. And then if you think about it, I mean, a 2-hour commute is a lot. So if I'm getting off at 11, and I got off the next day around 11 too, and then I'm driving 2 hours home and getting up in the morning.
And it's also just so unclear.
$500. And it's super unclear.
Yeah.
And it was like the more I was working, if you look at it hourly, the more I worked, the less I was making per hour.
Yes. So your $500 a day meant
very limited, very limited in terms of the supplies I had. Even some things that you would probably think are very basic to dentistry would not be available. Very little autonomy in the treatment that I was doing. Like I didn't really get to decide the procedures I was doing. They just say, this is your schedule, this is what you're doing. I wasn't allowed to treatment plan my own patients. The senior doctor would do the treatment plan, and then they'd say, this is what you're doing. Go for it.
Which is incredibly uncomfortable and unfair.
It was uncomfortable, yeah.
In the thing, because even in a group practice like us, we try very hard if we treatment plan for each other to talk about it. We're on the same page, but it's so hard to just show up in an operatory with another human being and have to do a treatment that you didn't treatment plan. So now contrast that, as we'll get back to ownership in a second, but your amazing job. What were some of the traits of that amazing job that made it so much better?
So that job was great. There was a huge level of respect for me, even though I was a new dentist. They knew that, this is Dr. Webster, he knows what he's doing. They would, to the patients, they would kind of talk me up and just establish that level of respect. That was really important. I had a lot of autonomy there. I could kind of, stretch in the areas clinically I wanted to stretch and get support from the other doctors working where I needed support. One of the associate doctors who worked there was actually one of my faculty instructors at school. So I had a great relationship established there. And it was just really wonderful.
So it's totally night and day.
It was night and day.
Culture. We talk about basketball, a different team culture. And I'll just add some quick value, because maybe I know D'Angelo will talk about your journey, whether you ever want to have an associate or not. But are you out there worried that you're going to be in a practice, raise your hand, where the patient's going to say, I don't want to see the new dentist. I don't know if the new dentist knows anything. Are you a practice owner who isn't sure what to say to patients when Millie says, I only need to see you, Dr. Paul. I don't want to see you, Dr. Paul. So this is so valuable, what I'm going to say. So we happen to have Dr. Alicia in our practice right now. So I'm going to use her. And this is going to happen probably tomorrow. Someone's going to say, only you can hand me my night guard, Paul, because patients get overly attached to you. And this is what you need to say with authenticity, like Gary Vee. And you tell your owner to say this, or the front desk team to say it, or the assistants, and say, I am so happy that you only want me to be your dentist, Millie, but I want to share the joy of your teeth with another dentist. They laugh, okay? And then the second line you say is, I would be happy to have Dr. Alicia do dental care in my mouth. You say that, all the trust there. Now, this is why you can't have Dr. Alicia doing a second molar root canal, D'Angelo, on her first day. That's not fair to her. So hopefully it sounds like in your great job, you were set up with procedures that were in your comfort zone. And if you needed help, people could ask you about them.
Right.
So,
yeah. In the first job, it was, I mean, I was getting cases that just were way outside of my comfort zone and there was no support. It was like, too bad, sit there till you can. It wasn't cool. But I can say, you know, in terms of finding jobs, Paul, you talk about like matching up young dentists with jobs and finding jobs in the job market. It was hard.
Why was it? Watch this. Why? So one of the things I do is, you know, all these different things, dental nachos, dentist job connects, and people say this to me all the time outside the industry. Why is it so hard for dentists to find jobs?
It's hard.
Because in their industry, they have LinkedIn and they have career fairs. So tell our audience why it's hard. Why was it hard to find a job?
Sure. I mean, the corporate job was easy, but finding like my good job was really difficult. You can like look in the journals, you know, if you subscribe to like your state dental journal, there's like classifieds in there. But there was like 2 jobs listed in there. And you know, those didn't work out for me. They weren't a good match. So what I actually ended up doing, because I was like, well, I'm not working. I quit my other job without a plan. So I just like had my resume and I just started driving to dental offices, walking in and saying, hey, I'm Dr. Webster. I need a job.
I love that.
And eventually I got to one and he was like, you know what? I'm not hiring, but my son is.
Love that.
Let me call him. And that's how I got my good job.
I'm just going to role model, D'Angelo, because I love this advice. Love it. I'm just going to role model what I gave to someone who might be in this webinar, what they should do to find a job. So they buy 10 boxes of cookies, whatever, cookies, you can buy nachos, get a bunch of your cards, put them together, walk into the front desk team and say, hi, my name is Dr. Paul Goodman. I'm coming back to this area, moving back to this area. I would love to meet your dentist and find out what dentistry is like in this area. I would love to take them to lunch. I would love to talk on the phone. Some are going to say, not tell the person, but if you do that enough times, Andrew, magic happened for you. It was that perfect matching. And you're not going to find that in a journal. You're not going to find that on Indeed. So you got to go do everything. Use online, use Dentist Job Connect. But this is your career and you have to be so proactive with that. I want to say, who taught you to do that? Because I'm very impressed.
I've always been one to do stuff like that. Yeah,
So,
I've always been one to just, if I have a question, I'm just gonna go ask.
I love that. So now let's go back on my list, just your journey, D'Angelo, because you're doing so much value. We're going to get to your blog next, but just catch us up. Give us 3 minutes. I promise I won't interrupt you or interject. Tell me your journey from dental school till today. If you had 3 minutes to orient our audience from job, practice, ownership, growth, tell us where you're at.
From dental school to today. As I kind of already said, like I applied for my startup loan as a D4 and got a pre-approval for it. But I did like a ton of research in dental school. So there was actually a point where I was like putting together so much information and interviewing so many people that I didn't have time to do it. So I actually recruited a team of pre-dental undergraduate students and I had 3 of them working under me. And I was like, okay, so this week we need to learn all about dental insurance. So you guys are going to go do that research, bring it back to me to curate. I need to interview X amount of doctors so that I can learn about dentistry in this area. So you guys are going to cold call dentists all week long and bring me back the list of people who say yes. That was my dental school experience.
Awesome.
I was doing things like that. And then when I graduated, you know, I had that transgression and I ended up with my good job. I was there for about a year. So I started my startup process as a dental student, but I had to go through the whole construction process, which I was learning about. I didn't use like an architect or a design company or anything. I designed the whole thing. It took about a year to have that all finished before I could actually see patients. And then I slowly started transitioning like part-time here, part-time there until I was full-time at my office. Things picked up really quickly. So some report I read said that a practice in terms of new patient flow that's getting less than 15 new patients a month is like dying or shrinking. If it's getting between 15 and 25, it's stable. If it's getting more than 25 new patients a month, it's in the growth phase. I would routinely get more than 100 new patients a month. I would say typically for 2019, just the number in my head right now, my average for 2019, which is my last full year before COVID was weird, we averaged 89 new patients a month. And I spend like a couple hundred couple $100 a month on marketing. Like,
you just, I will interject this. I'm really impressed by your Facebook. Tell us just for a minute about your Facebook marketing, how you utilize that to leverage it in a very, very affordable way.
So one of the keys that let my practice become so financially successful so fast is that I had the patient volume of a fully established dental practice very early on. And I don't do any fancy dentistry. So to kind of do the numbers that we need, we just needed patient base. Like,
I want to add that you're doing, and I think, and I want to compliment you on this, because I know I don't want this to come off the wrong way. I want to say, you're doing dental school dentistry, right? Tell the audience.
I do dental school dentistry.
Right. You're doing crowns, fillings, extractions, dentures,
SRP. That's it.
Yeah. Sorry, go back to the Facebook marketing. Sorry, the Facebook
So the Facebook marketing is exclusively where I spent my marketing dollars. I didn't do any SEO. I didn't do any like Google marketing. I didn't do any Instagram marketing. I didn't send out any mailers or anything in the mail. I put up a banner and I did Facebook marketing, and I did things in the community to be active and kind of be involved in the community. But the Facebook marketing was really, really important. And I would track, how are people hearing about me? It's just a simple question I have on my health history form. And I realized like 70 to 80% of people are writing that they heard me on Facebook. So I really refined how I did that. And like, I do like a seminar on it occasionally.
If people, I know you're as classy as they come, D'Angelo, but I'm just going to make you say this. How can people learn about your Facebook marketing? Next time you open up a course, how can they reach out to you, learn more about it? I want to just
on practicebiopsy.com, there's actually a wait list for the Facebook marketing class. So if you just go to the menu tab, you can say you want to be on the wait list. It'll have a little bit of information about the Facebook marketing seminar that I run.
Practicebiopsy.com. Perfect. I know you didn't come for that, but I'm always here to add value to my audience, and that will help them. So now, you're doing the Facebook marketing. I've seen you show this on your group. So it's super affordable way to drive your new patients.
Absolutely. And I'll give like number one tip, like one tip to take away for Facebook marketing is that people are on Facebook to see what their friends are doing, what their family is doing, and what's going on in their local community. They're not there to check on the dentist, okay? They don't really care about the dentist. They don't think that like your tooth joke is funny or your dental meme is cool, like other dentists might, but like the typical patient doesn't. So when you do Facebook ads, the less it is about dentistry, the better and the more effective that it's gonna be. You want to take your brand, whatever the brand is for your practice, a lot of dentists haven't thought about this, but whatever the brand is for your practice, you want to combine that with imagery and words that let the patient see their community and their friends, their family, and that will resonate with them a lot more than telling them, posting some cartoon about a tooth and saying, tooth whitening special or $25 pro fee. Like,
I want to kindly encourage you. I know you're kind of annoy you. You're a Facebook marketing guru, but I use Instagram a lot for my practice. I'm not like a Dr. Desiree Yassin, but the same thing goes there. People want to know you as a person first. That's what they think about. And you can, what's crazy is you do all this is free, right? Like I can go, Facebook ads cost money, but I have a Pennington Dental Instagram account, doesn't have 1 million followers. If I want to put in something with my daughters, if I want to put in something with a patient, you put it on Instagram stories, you'll be amazed at how many people start to just see your authentic person story. So love that message of be a person first, weird dentisting humans second.
Yeah. Be a person first. Definitely. And then like in terms of marketing, another tip to really simplify it, like the world of marketing is very large and can be very difficult and overwhelming. As a dentist, if you can like simplify it to one goal, if you accomplish this goal, you'll have as many patients as you can possibly handle. Become famous within a 5-mile radius.
Love that. That's a great D'Angelo details. It become famous in a 5-mile radius. And you know what you're doing? My dad was an amazing dad, amazing mentor. Unfortunately, he passed away a few years ago, but I grew up with him in the practice. Those dentists did that in an authentic way by coaching basketball teams, by going to supermarkets. What you're showing though, and I think which is great, you don't live in the community where you practice, but you can leverage the power of social media because people are, even though my dad was coaching the sports teams and stuff, no one came and hung out with us at our house. They just met him at the office. So you can show that story through the power of social media. So I love that, D'Angelo.
Stories are very important. Utilizing storytelling in communication is really powerful.
I told you, I want to keep you about 10 more minutes, but now I want to just wrap up with this blog you wrote today, because if you could just break down these points for us, because I thought it was brilliant. And I really, stuff's page out of stuff I've talked about. So tell us, you put out content today. You said a special post coming. Tell us what's in this blog, how people can find it, and break down the 5 points.
Sure. So to see the blog post that Paul's talking about, you can either go to the Practice Biopsy Facebook group, or you can go to practicebiopsy.com. and you'll see it over there as well. But basically, I wrote a post about a topic that I've been hearing about a lot lately, and dental students have been kind of bouncing ideas off me as well. Kind of like you, a lot of dental students talk to me and ask me questions. So I just kind of compiled it into a post. Like, what do I do after school? Like, you're graduating dental school or finishing your residency, but now it's time to actually have a job. And really, there's like 5 different pathways that you can go down. We're all going to end up very different places later. Our careers are going to take us places that we never would have really imagined, but we're going to all start typically in like one of these 5 places. One is going to be an associate in a private practice. That could be somewhere where you start. And there's pros and cons to all of these. With the associate job in private practice, that's like the golden goose for a lot of people. I mean, that's just the job that they have their eyes set on. But I think that can go very well, or it could go very poorly. It's very, very dependent on the dentist that you are working for, and you don't really know until you start. The other pathway you could take would be corporate dentistry, and a lot of dentists and dental students bash corporate dentistry. But at the end of the day, that is probably the number one. DSOs are probably the number one place where new graduates end up, and a lot of our dental colleagues work there. So I
want to interject, D'Angelo. Yeah. I work with DSOs daily, yeah. And sometimes people who don't understand the full context or go, Paul, why would you find a job at a DSO? They're evil. And I said, I don't know. So a dentist can have a job. And so the people at that practice can get dental care. So I don't think any of us have walked into CVS, got our medication and 50% off candy and be like, this is the most evil place ever.
Yeah, there's so many
trends. There's so many trends in medicine and dentistry, and the DSOs are here to stay. So what I encourage people to do is find out which ones are good to work with, what they have expectations for.
And sometimes really like
so valuable.
There's only so many of the other opportunities available. So DSO or unemployed is the options in some of these locations.
Yes.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Third one.
Gotcha.
Third pathway you could take is a public health job. So my wife works in public health as a dentist, and it's really awesome. Public health jobs could be like clinics in underserved areas. They're usually government funded. You could work in a prison clinic, Native American Reserve clinic. There's all different sorts of public health ones, and they're usually funded by grants, and you get to provide dental care for people who are underserved and really need it, and oftentimes are some of the most appreciative people. And these jobs, I think, are really great, especially for new grads, because there is seldom a production goal. There's no pressure to produce. They're just letting you do quality dentistry, and it's going to be simple dentistry in public health settings. So usually you're going to be doing fillings, extractions, dentures, and RPDs, and you can just kind of really ease into working life in a public health type of job. The fourth pathway option is going to be ownership. You can buy a practice right out of school, which I've got some colleagues that did, and I'm sure you do too. Or you could start a practice right out of school like I did. That one is probably the most risky pathway. It requires more investment, but
one of the things I want to jump in on this one here is, so someone who's a medium-aged dentist doing this, buying practice, going to work tomorrow, working with DSOs, I will share with you, and you're my great friend, and I'm so inspired by you. What you sound like you've done is you're not going to move across the country tomorrow, are you? I mean, you don't seem like it. So you cannot be geographically flexible once you buy a practice.
No, so that's one of the downsides. I put that in my blog. One of the, two big downsides to ownership is, although it has the biggest upside for income potential, it has the biggest bottom for income potential too. Yeah. Like if you're like a really bad business person, you might make little money or no money. Also, your geographic mobility is cut as soon as you start. Once that's your practice, you cannot move without ripping.
I say this, D'Angelo, people have heard this. Don't mess up your first things in house. Don't mess up in life. Don't mess up your first things in life. Don't mess up your first spouse, your first house, or your first practice, because I get to talk to dentists at the end of their careers and oftentimes at the end of their lives. and they've had multiple spouses, multiple houses, but only one practice. So it just shows you that that dental practice is very complex to untangle yourself from. So it doesn't mean that you shouldn't buy one, but I'm just highlighting you were in a stable geographic position, and it sounds like you're in a stable personal place. Yeah. So
because like you said, untangling that, because your whole life is going to become engrossed in it, and untangling it is a huge mess. Like you said, like they've lost a different house, lost their wife, but they still have the practice.
Right. Or they've gotten divorced and someone want to move away and you can't. I mean, people call me up and say, hey, I need to sell my practice in the next 3 months. And I have to be the person who says to them, it's just not going to happen like that. You're going to have to make plans differently. It's impossible. So
unless they really drop the price.
Yes. But like, even with the drop price, we're giving out a practice almost for free right now that comes with real estate, because owning a dental practice, you have to have a licensed dentist, a dentist licensed in that state, a dentist licensed in that state that has access to financing. Those 3 things create this. So I didn't want to interrupt, but that was a great point. You can go into practice ownership early in your career, but it comes with a lot of personal complexity that you want to just make sure you're ready for.
Yep. And then the fifth pathway that you can take working out of school is academics. Like you could keep working in the school. I remember one faculty in particular, he was telling us a story. He's like, yeah, I remember when I graduated on a Friday and I was back at the school working on Monday. Like you can, not everyone can do this, but if you're well connected with the faculty and you have a skill for teaching, you can work at the school. You can teach in the sim lab, in the pre-clinic lab. Right. You can teach some introductory class if you have a really good aptitude for that. So you could be in academics. So those are the 5 really pathways that you can choose from. We all start off from some variation of that. Private practice associate, corporate associate, public health, ownership, or academics.
Yeah, that's an awesome breakdown, Andrew. We take a few questions, wrap in 5 minutes, but just I want to, once again, I know you've said it a few times, is practicebiopsy.com the best place for people to learn more about what you do?
Yeah, practicebiopsy.com and then the Practice Biopsy Facebook group are going to be the places to go.
And I want to share with you guys, if you want help with one of these biggest decisions, the Nacho team will help you. You just text job or wherever you're at, buy, hire, or sell to 215-543-6454. Now we got a question in the chat here, D'Angelo. It was just a detail one. How many square feet do you have in your dental practice and how many operatories?
It's about 1,500 square feet, and it's a little awkwardly laid out because it's over 2 stories, but it's about 1,500 square feet, and I have 4 ops. I would have liked to have 5, but the deal on this location was so good, and I felt like the location was really ideal that I went with a smaller space because I had the opportunity to own it, and I felt like it'd be really successful. So it's 4 ops. I wish it was a little bigger. 5 would be nice, but 4 has been plenty.
I always say about Dennis P. Diddy, more ops, less problems, you know? So in general, the more opportunity to get more ops is often a really big benefit. I have a 3-op practice with a lot of older patients who I love. I wish all my patients were over 60, but sometimes they're literally in the waiting room, D'Angelo, and I go, open up your mouth, Millie. I need to see what tooth's broken, what we need to get set up back there. Because if it's a little chip, we'll do this. So more ops is better. How about what would you see? What is the number again for the jobs? Oh, for the jobs, just text 215-543-6454. You'll get a list of all the jobs, including the awesome one from Heather Bialy, who's here, Castle Family Dentistry in New Jersey. I want to, if we can ask a few more questions, but I want to ask you a question about this crazy social media world. So I'm really into relationships. I'm going to tell you the story of Dr. Todd Fleischman. Dr. Todd Fleischman lived in Philadelphia. He reached out to me in 2018, said, I like what you're doing with dental nachos. We should get beers. So I met him and we had beers and I was like, man, this dentist is so great. I want him to speak for my study club. He's like, I'm not going to speak. I'm like, I want you to speak. He's like, I'm not going to speak. I want you to speak. So I kindly annoyed him to speak. Well, yada, yada. He is now a boost camp speaker. We're almost best friends here in Philadelphia. He's just awesome. And he always says, the more Paul Goodman annoys you, the less annoyed you'll be in your life. Now, we have not had the opportunity to meet in person yet, D'Angelo, but we've had a lot of opportunity to talk behind the scenes. Tell people, you know, I know I'm an acquired nacho taste. I get it. I didn't grow up with social media, but tell me, you probably forget what it was like when you met me. Tell people a little bit about your experience with dental nachos and me, and maybe why digging into people's real persona outside of their social media persona, not just for Paul Goodman, is helpful.
Yeah. So Paul, I mean, something that I like about, you know, my experience with you and dental nachos is that one, your group is one where I can find positivity in dentistry. There's a lot of people, especially on social media, that are dentists that complain a lot. and I like to feel good about myself and
Yeah.
what I'm doing. So you kind of do a good job of like filtering and making sure that Dental Nachos overall has a tone of positivity, and really add to the dental
Yeah.
community. And then just you behind the scenes. I mean, there's times when I've had something on my mind with business or life, and you just call me on the phone and we talk about it. And
I
that's
like
really
that.
helpful. And these sort of relationships and interactions, they don't happen really without social media. Like I never would have met you.
Right. I mean,
Or
I
even
like
if I
that.
met you, I never would have like
And
engaged, you know?
I had a dental student who was so probably like a younger version of how we were. He called me this summer. He said, I want to observe. His name's Daniel. He's amazing. And he called me and he Facebook messaged me and he's coming to Philly. And I was like, call me on the phone. I talked to him and his friend said, oh man, I can't believe you talked to Paul Goodman on the phone. Like I'm just a normal person with a phone, right?
No,
Like,
Paul,
so
you're dental famous.
Gary Vee says this all the time. I mean, Instagram and DM people and try to develop relationships because I love that stuff, right? You help me, I help you. It helps me to talk things out. And I just think we need more of this because we are isolated. We're not working together. I really appreciate the positivity that you said in my group, but I also like real reality too. So you're a new dad. I have a 3-year-old. You can't say to a new dad or mom, it's going to be cool when you have a child. You can just live your life how you used to, right? It totally blows up your whole life in a good way. It does, right? You got a whole person. You go to a hospital as 2 people. They give you a whole person. You just leave. No questions, no nothing, right? So, dental student loans, people being mistreated at jobs. This is some of the reality. So people say, Paul, sometimes you're negative. And I said, I never intentionally am negative. I'm sharing the reality that many people may not know about. Like I got a call this week from a dentist new at a corporate job who's being asked to do dentures all day. He's only done 1 denture in dental school, and it's a problem. Tell me a little bit of some of your thoughts about some of the lack of clinical experience that is going to impact some of the dental students, and either A, what to watch out for, and B, what you would do if you were in their shoes.
I mean, it's really bad.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, a lot of dental students talk to me and they're like, yeah, I'm graduating having done 1 crown and a couple fillings. I'm graduating having done 1 canal, like not 1 tooth, 1 canal
Right.
for endo.
Some do
Like,
observation only for endo now, I've seen.
yeah, some are observation only. I know that at least at some point, University of Michigan was like, there was no more restorative for pediatrics. You only toothbrush prophies. That was your learning experience. I'm like, okay, well now I'm in a DSO where I see 10 kids a day. What do I do? So it's kind of scary, really.
Right. So, and what I want to share with me and you here is positive is, if someone yells out, oh, but my dental school's great, I'm so thrilled, right? So pretend I'm at a party with a bunch of,
but some are really bad right now.
Yeah, and that's where we need to help. If I have a bunch of 3-year-olds at a party and 5 of them are eating off the floor and 5 of them are sitting at a table, I go, I got to deal with this problem over here. So I don't ignore positive things. Someone says, I'm from Creighton, we're doing great. I love that. Share that, but also share where we can help, because when dental school closes the door and you haven't gotten the experience, Angelo, you're in the real world as an owner and associate.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the students, I worry. So some, like you said, some schools, they're still moving ahead and everything's great, but some are not. And I worry with those students that they're just going to kind of plow through, graduate school, and then hope for the best after. Like if you don't know what you're doing and you start a real job and your schedule's full of patients and you don't feel confident doing these surgical procedures in their mouth, things can go very poorly.
Yeah. And one of the things I want to share is that this is where I want to just add in some context about GPRs and AGDs. I have multiple associates in my practice. I love them. I will help them with anything, but it's not comfortable in private practice for me to show someone how to do something in someone's mouth, or me to be shown, by the way, because I have a surgical process. The patient loses confidence, even if that's not fair.
Because it's not it could be a mentorship environment in private practice, but it's not a learning environment in private practice. And that's different. If they're like, hold on, I'm not sure how to do this. Paul, can you show me? I'm like, I just paid you a ton of money for this and you don't know how to do it. Why am I here?
So that's why I want to share. You're such a good point. That's such the reality we need to share here, D'Angelo, because it's just for everybody to understand that the environment of a GPR AGD in dental school is drastically different than practice or corporate dentistry, because the patient's expectations are drastically different. Think if you went to get a haircut tomorrow and the person said, hold on, I need to go ask for help, and then 2 people were working on you, even if you got a great haircut at the end, your experience, you might not want to go back.
You might want to go back.
It stinks. It stinks. When you have a baby at a hospital, they freaking traipse in 5 residents. They're talking to each other. That system's way different than dentistry. So it's just us inspiring at the end that you can learn in private practice or corporate dentistry, but if you need fundamental skill help and you don't have it before going into the real world,
then you got to, I do GPR
problem.
residency.
Yeah.
If I didn't have the fundamental skills, I think you have to. I mean, unless you can find another way to pick things up. Like if you work as a dental assistant and you're just really, really involved and you ask a lot of questions at that time to the point where you really feel confident. If you're like working on typodont teeth, even after all your other classmates think it's lame to be still working on typodont teeth. Like if you just,
what's crazy about this, unfortunately, D'Angelo, is what happens is like I always think of those things where like Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan shot at the gym all night. And I'm always like, who opened the gym for them all night? So like my point is at dental schools, one of the things is the ability to even use these practice labs has been influenced by the pandemic, right? So you're 100% right.
Closed.
Yeah, back in the day, you could stay till 1 a.m. or 10 p.m. The 1 a.m. people got more experience, but I've heard feedback that some of these places, which I understand, the pandemic has changed things.
Yeah, you've got to like sign up on the list and you get 30 minutes or something.
So, well, I love this interview. This was great. We're going to get this out to a lot of people. If we can help you with dentalnachos.com, we're here to do this. Stick around, D'Angelo, for a few minutes. We're going to jump off our live stream.
Yeah,
Thanks
absolutely.
so much, guys. Awesome, D'Angelo. That was perfect. It was 58 minutes. I see all these awesome nachoers. I hope you guys, I see some of my NAP program people here. You text NAP, N-A-P, to 215-543-6454. You can be part of our thing. I got a couple questions, D'Angelo. And Andrea's awesome. How can a current dental student best prepare for practice ownership now while in school? Give her a one thing. Give Andrea, she's awesome, a one thing for that. What's one thing a current dental student could do now to prepare for practice ownership?
So I'm actually going to kind of piggyback off what we just talked about. With the current environment, you got to have your fundamental clinical skills down first. You have to be able to do the basics clinically. Okay. Because when you're a practice owner, especially a new one, I used to tell people that 95% of my brain was on ownership and running the practice. 5% was on dentistry, but I had to be confident enough in my basic clinical skills to let that just be on autopilot. Like if I was stressed out about my crown prep or being able to do a filling, or how to get a good impression, I wouldn't have been able to run the business.
That's such valuable advice. I'm just telling everyone out there, and I know this person, she's awesome. Love her now, not just, I know sometimes people go to dental school later, they think they don't have time. Life is very long. No one ever regrets getting more experience early. You have your whole career to be there. You do not know how lonely it is to be in the operatory by yourself at any time. And I'm going to have 5 dentists working with me tomorrow, but if I'm in the operatory by myself, it can be a very lonely experience, and you just want to have the fundamental skills to troubleshoot before you do that. So I love that, D'Angelo. Yeah, and then Ryan said, how many hygienists do you have? Are they paid off production or base pay? How large is your staff?
So at one point I had 3 hygienists, but one of them retired from hygiene due to the pandemic. She doesn't work in healthcare anymore. So now I have 2, and they don't always work the same day. So they work different days with the occasional double hygiene day. So I have 4 ops, 1's hygiene, the other 3 are for me, except on double hygiene day, then it's 2 and 2. I don't pay them on production. I pay them a flat hourly rate.
And you said to them the other day, you'll do a prophy every now and then.
Every now and then.
I just want to share. I mean, I'm older now, but I did a 3-year GPR. I placed 150 implants. And my first job with my dad, I was doing hygiene on Saturday. I wasn't too good for it. Do you want to know why? Nothing goes wrong during a prophy. You get to meet the patients. So I just want to share. I'm not going to go back to that time. I'm in my own time. But if I was applying for a job, I would be very open to doing some hygiene, not all hygiene, because you get to meet patients. Also, I want to share, I'm not bragging this, but like we sometimes have a day where associate will do all hygiene. You know, they produce $2,000 a day. They're paid $700 a day for a fairly stress-free day, right? So why not just have a stress-free day every now and then?
Stress-free day.
Yeah.
And I'd say the time most often I'm doing a prophy. I've got my hygienist and a husband and wife say they want to come in at the same time.
Yeah.
Put the I'll see one of them. My hygienist will see the other one. It's not going to take me an hour of scaling probably. Right. So in that same hour, I'm probably doing, numbing up a patient to do some fillings too. And it's not a big deal.
I have multiple associates, I do this all the time. If an associate says, hey, if I need to do some hygiene, that's okay. It would be great if it was only like 25% of my schedule. So then you'll be able to see how much they have you. And that's exactly what we do for ours. Because one of the things too is working one job that you really like, doing some hygiene is better than doing 2 days at the job you really like, and then trying to find some other random thing. So D'Angelo,
I think as a practice owner, you want to be willing to do anything.
I want to say one thing. Oh, I love Jared's awesome. Thank you so much, D'Angelo and Paul. This is gold. I just took over a small 3-out practice. I'm not the owner, but I'm the only doctor in the practice. It's essentially a pseudo startup. Look forward to your Facebook marketing course. Thanks so much, Jared. You're awesome. Is it okay to do hygiene in a new acquisition? Yeah, it's totally okay to do. But many times startup people are doing their own hygiene just to meet the patient. I mean, D'Angelo, we're both dentists for different years. A lot can go wrong doing a crown on number 20. Impression doesn't come out. You can look foolish when things are going a little off script. That does not happen when you're cleaning teeth. It's a really, really comfortable experience for you and the patient. So you get to kind of show off your confidence. You get the chance to talk to people. So I think doing it for a startup is great.
And building those relationships. I mean, extra time to build the relationship.
Right.
You know, that's important for growing the practice too, because that's how you end up with referrals. You know. They got to spend some time with you.
I just think that's super valuable. You did so much good here, D'Angelo. I'll get this to you. Thanks so much. Everybody watching on Sunday, so impressed we had so many people. I'll send out the recordings, everybody. D'Angelo, thanks so much. Really enjoyed it.
No problem.
Thanks, everybody. See you later. Finding your first job in dentisting is not easy. Hiring your first associate, also difficult. I have created Dentist Job Connect to solve this problem. My name is Paul Dr. Nacho Goodman, founder of Dental Nachos, and connecting dentists for jobs is one of my favorite things to do. It embraces our amazing Nacho spirit of collaboration, community, and helping each other. To learn more how we can help you, text JOB to 215-543-6454.